This book is 11 years in the making. It's been a very painful book to write. All I have done is that I have given a truthful account of what I have seen within the judicial system. And it has taken the loss of the judiciary for Nigeria to become the useless place it has more or less become now. For anybody to be a citizen, for a society to have citizens, you must be found on the rule of law. It would mean that both the governed and the governors are equally bound by the law. It must mean that the judiciary is one that deals with people blindfolded.
Is it wrong for Afe Babalola to seek justice for these false utterances against him?
But we're not in a democracy. We're not in a country ruled by law.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Politics on Nigerian News. Today we turn our focus to the arrest and ongoing legal saga involving human rights advocate and author Dele Farotimi. Just as we saw in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, Nigerians are speculating that Nigerian state seems to have adopted a familiar playbook with Dele Farotimi for his arrest over claims of defamation against legal luminary Afe Babalola in his book critiquing Nigeria criminal justice system. No charges has been filed against Farotimi. Prominent opposition figures, human rights activists and political analysts have sharply criticized his arrest. The argument, character defamation, is a civil matter, not a criminal offense. The Nigerian Bar Association also weighed in, asserting that the police should not have been involved. Defamation cases, according to them, they argue, are best handled through lawsuits in civil courts, not through arrest and detention. Human rights lawyer Femi Falana's son referenced his own case with an individual known as Very Dark Man, VDM Martin Ose, pointing out that even in his situation, he pursued civil litigation rather than involving law enforcement.
The early reactions came from senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, who confirmed the arrest and demanded the release of Mr. Farotimi from what he described as illegal custody. Falana said, in demanding for Mr. Farotimi's unconditional release from illegal custody, I wish to state without any fear of contradiction that Lagos State is among the 2 states in Nigeria that have decriminalized defamation in its entirety. The other state is Edo.
This underscores the legal consequences that the use of police in defamation cases is highly inappropriate.
Secondly, the other issue that we are here for is the arrest and detention of Dele Farotimi. Dele Farotimi, a lawyer and a rights activist and also a political activist in the country, was abducted in Lagos in his office on the instruction of the Nigerian police after our revered father and leader in the legal profession had petitioned that Dele Farotimi in his book defamed him. Well, it is unfortunate and regrettable that our revered father and leader in the profession will resort to using the police to harass, intimidate, and arrest a fellow lawyer, someone who is speaking up against the ills in society. That if Afe Babalola felt defamed, that the ordinary thing that one would have expected him to do is to have use civil remedies, to sue Dele Farotimi, that when people who have condemned institutional abuse of institutional power in the past, like Baba, now resort to doing same, it is most unfortunate.
Afe Babalola ought to have gone to court.
I did a video about Dele Farotimi that they should charge him to court instead of using the police to intimidate him. It does not work. Normal processes work. Normal processes of prosecution, justice, they are more enduring and produce the right results. Don't concoct allegations upon allegations. You use the police, you use the DSS, you use EFCC, you use whatever to intimidate people. It does not work. Nigerians are a people they don't fear. The generation of my children that are now in the streets, they don't fear.
There are also contradiction and justification. In a recent town hall meeting in Ekiti State, Owoshenyi Ajayi's son and former Attorney General of Ekiti State adopted or he attempted to justify Farotimi's arrest and explain why his release was not forthcoming.
We ask, is it wrong for Afe Babalola to seek justice for these false utterances against him? Should justice only be available to Mr. Dele Farotimi because Afe Babalola is a global icon? He's a big man, has no right to defend himself against destruction of his image we have struggled to build up? These are the questions we're asking people who never care to know the truth and the background to the trial and the arrest of Dele Farotimi.
However, this justification only seemed to reinforce Farotimi's bold claim about the lack of functional rule of law in Nigeria.
When people become so powerful that they don't even care or believe that they are subject to any law, the law does not apply to them. The brazen impunity by which they did what they did made it impossible for maybe somebody else might have been able to find peace and walk away and be telling the story when they sit amongst their friends and they are sharing beer and cognac. But I'm not interested in beer parlor talk.
If we were in a democracy, I'll be talking to you about democracy dying in darkness. But we're not in a democracy. We're not in a country ruled by law. We're not in a place where people understand the fact that if you do not build a rule-based society, no matter how much wealth you gather in vain. You gather in vain. The first condition of the human spirit is the demand for justice.
From this case alone, it becomes evident that his book, which critiques the system, may hold more truth than friction. If the justice system were not compromised, why would the former Attorney General advocate for police intervention in a matter that clearly belongs to the court? So what's the bigger picture? Could this case against Farotimi be more about silencing dissent than about defamation? Many observers think so. Farotimi's book may have been a convenient pretext for this arrest. Over the past years, his vocal criticism of current administration have made him a target. Farotimi's bold critics have spared no one. He has referred to Atiku Abubakar as an old war horse benefiting from Nigeria's wars and called out figures like Nyesom Wike, Bola Tinubu and Ashari Dokubo in their role in the End Bad Governance protest earlier this year. One of his most controversial remarks involved accusing President Tinubu of cozying up with French President Macron at a time when other African leaders were distancing themselves from France. In another scathing commentary, he questioned the contribution of business magnate Tony Elumelu, labeling him as part of the crass elite that has pushed Nigeria into its knees. In fact, after he made that post on his Twitter, there was speculation, in fact there were rumors or reports at first that he was arrested by Tony Elumelu. After that, his book came up and then the book was the perfect pretext to arrest him. But it shows that these guys have been trying to get their hands on this guy, so they were using one point to the other, then finally they got the perfect excuse about the book. Farotimi's criticism of the Nigerian judiciary system has been equally scathing. He once declared that justice cannot be attained through the current judicial system.
If Afe Babalola was the only person who is licensed to enjoy that level of impunity, that's different. It's not about him. It's a system-wide problem. You simply can't get justice from the system. When I spoke about him and the others, they are merely as examples.
Ironically, the actions taken against him seem to validate this point. Could it be that those responsible for the current state of the judiciary know they can't rely on it to secure their desired outcomes? Is this why they turn to the police instead of pursuing civil litigation? So, what lay ahead of Farotimi, or what lays ahead for him? Let's revisit the charges against Farotimi and hear what they entail.
In view of the above, I humbly request that you, that is to the Commission of Police, use your good office to invite Mr. Dele Farotimi to show proof of the truthfulness of his publication, failure of which he should be prosecuted for criminal defamation in accordance with the requirements of the extant laws of Nigeria. Confiscate all defamatory publications until the investigations are completed. Stop Mr. Dele Farotimi by himself and or his agents from further publishing any defamatory content to attack my hard-earned reputation, the reputation of my law firm and that of my lawyers and of the Nigerian judiciary. Is it wrong? We are asking, is it wrong for Afe Babalola to seek justice for these false utterances against him? Should justice only be available to Mr. Dele Farotimi because Afe Babalola is a global icon? He's a big man, has no right to defend himself against destruction of his image we have struggled to beat up? These are the questions we're asking people who never care to know the truth and the background to the trial and the arrest of Dele Farotimi.
So according to the former IG of Ekiti State, Farotimi must provide evidence to back his claims against Afe Babalola. However, Farotimi has already presented evidence in his book and various publications forums.
What I have done is to offer my own first-hand experience within the system. I have merely spoken to what I saw within the system, what I witnessed. So where the United Nations Office for Drug and Crime can speak generally and in broad terms, where Mr. Shofunde could speak about the Supreme Court having become perfunctory with his judgment. I'm quoting him, Supreme Court judgment has become perfunctory.
What did Afe Babalola do to you?
You are making this sound like some personal grievance between myself and Afe Babalola. I'm saying it is not personal. I'm saying that Afe Babalola corrupted the judiciary. And in corrupting the judiciary, it came across my practice. When I came across it, I challenged it as a lawyer and I fought it to the point where he could not enjoy the fruit of his exertion in the Supreme Court. In writing the letter that he wrote to the then Chief Justice of Lagos State, Ayomide Philip, he libeled me. He suggested that I should be derobed, that what I had done was deserving of sanction and I should have been struck off the bar. And when I saw this, knowing what I already knew of what he did, I wrote a letter asking that he should withdraw that letter that he had written that was libelous of me. And it declined. Arrogantly so, it declined. And I sued him for libel. And when I sued for libel, the machines of corruption went into overdrive, and a case that should never have been killed at the preliminary stage was killed. Everything about the case, the judge to whom it was assigned, the manner of the handling of the case, 9 months after it was adjourned for ruling, 9 months. The procedures are clear. It shouldn't be longer than 3 months. 9 months without informing us, in spite of the fact that we had written 2 letters to request to be told when the ruling will be delivered. So, and then the ruling went as far as to say that, look, Sheung, there are some things that should not be reduced to person. This has nothing to do with persons. If Afe Babalola was the only person who is licensed to enjoy that level of impunity, that's different. It's not about him. It's a system-wide problem. You simply can't get justice from the system. When I spoke about him and the others, they are merely as examples. He has nothing to do with persons. I don't know him as a person beyond what I have described. I think I've only ever set my eye on him once in my entire life. I described it in the book. It was at Itro Terminal 5. That was the only time I ever saw him in my life, and it was before this occurrence. So it's nothing personal. But if persons have perpetrated evil and they have reinforced it and built a system that is as patently evil as the one in which we are living, it becomes the duty of the conscious. If you are conscious of that evil, you must speak against it. If you don't speak against it, you are helping to normalize it.
The level of corruption that I witnessed in this case, the brazenness of it, is not suggestive of somebody who is coming to the rodeo for the first time. This is a well-practiced person. This is the norm for these persons. No matter how corrupt a judicial system might be, there are certain precepts and norms. It's like I want to count 1 to 3, and then I'm looking to skip 2. So I just say 1, 3. Where is the 2? So there should be some order, some processes by which you arrive at a particular decision. That is why the court have rules. But when you see the highest judicial body in the country flouting its own rules and acting in a manner that is suggestive of impunity, then you know that something is very abnormal in that situation.
Okay, look at Ariwola, for instance. A man is the Chief Justice of the Federation. He makes his son a judge of the Federal High Court. He makes his daughter-in-law a judge of the Federal Court of Federal Capital Territory. He makes his brother Auditor of the Nigerian Judicial Council. Another family member became a judge of the Court of Appeal. When you have these egregious abuses of the Judicial Code of Conduct, when they have more or less turned judicial appointment into a family inheritance, when it is the girlfriends and wives of politicians that become judges and justices, what you find is a replication of what you have in the police, in the custom, and in every other aspect of our society. So it is not as if there is a special cult in the judiciary or at the bar. No, not necessarily. It's the same Nigerian factor of not holding people responsible for their actions, of a system that is not designed to enforce the rule of law. It is that same system that you are seeing at work in the judiciary. It is just that its effect on the judiciary is by far more ruinous than everywhere else, because the illusion of justice has been eroded. There is no longer any illusion that there is justice. Everybody now knows that you are not going to get justice from. How do you expect to get justice from a court that is constantly doing all kinds of somersaults? So it's not about a court somewhere. If there is one, I'm unaware. But I do know that with every other Nigerian thing, when some people have conquered the space as though it were to be a territory, you then find a succession of their children, their friends and assigns being placed in offices, and the person who has appointed you, to a very large extent in a prebendal system, gets to dictate what you do. If an emir wants to sue now, he will sue and they will deliver judgment within 1 week. That's why you ended up with the madness in Kano. But if a poor man needs justice delivered quickly, he's still in court for the 4 years, like I have been in court for 4 years, and I'm not exactly poverty ridden. These people who are expressing all these opinions of Justice Kayode Ariwola and talking about how selfless he is, how selfless is he when he was appointing his son a judge of the Federal High Court against the clear provision of the Judicial Code of Conduct? How selfless was he when he was appointing his brother Auditor of the National Judicial Council? So I'm not going to, like I said, it's not personal. So when they are busy eulogizing him and talking about how selfless he is, let them remember that the history on paper, the facts suggest the exact opposite of what they are saying. But like I said, I have nothing personal against Ariwola as a man. I don't know him. I've never seen him in my life. I've never met him. So whatever it is that they say he is, history will judge all of us eventually. History would decide whether a selfless man would appoint his son a judge, his daughter-in-law a judge, his brother auditor, another cousin justice of the Court of Appeal, under his watch as the Chief Justice of the Federation. So me, I'm not going to join issues with his judgment by history. I've written what I know of him, and that was what I found in coming across him as a public servant. I was being tried before Justice Dada, and whilst I was there, 2 people were equally being tried by the EFCC before Justice Dada. The lady was trying to procure a visa to the United Kingdom, and she was trying to do this using forged documents. And the second accused, our co-accused, was the one who was more or less like the travel agent who provided the forged document. Whilst I was there, whilst my own case was also going on, this pair were convicted and sentenced to prison. It was the same week that they were sentenced to prison that the Kemi Adeosun story was breaking in the Nigerian press. And I was looking at this. In this same society, where somebody who was trying to escape the madness of Nigeria in her desperation, yes, not condoning criminality, in her desperation, she procured forged documents. The system, with the agency of the EFCC,
ensured their imprisonment. But Kemi Adeosun, a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, forged their own NYSC paper. What happened to her? Nothing. So for the poor, you have judgment. For the rich, you have impunity.
To conclude everything, this case transcends our simple defamation allegation. It appears to be a battle between Dele Farotimi and the establishment. The implications are troubling. When a government uses its power to suppress dissent, it undermines the principles of democracy and justice. If those entrusted with governance and the administration of justice are weaponizing this institution against critics, what hope remains for ordinary citizens? So, the Farotimi's case is a sobering reminder of the ongoing fight for accountability, free speech, and justice in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Politics on Nigerian News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on political developments shaping our nation. Also, drop your 2 cents in the comment section. Let's talk politics.